Time to talk about how we can make money on UFC Winnipeg, which goes down this Saturday, April 18th. I'm going to break down every fight on the card. Let's get into it. Kicking things off, we've got a featherweight bout. Yannis taking on Siraj. This one just got recently added. We don't know a ton about these guys at the UFC level, but Yannis, he did have one UFC fight so far. He has decent boxing, right? He has got some good kicks as well, a work to the body. I think he does particularly well when he notices his opponent gets hurt, and then he can start unleashing some combinations to the body, and that's why most of his knockouts, or all of his knockouts, occur after round one. He does really well once he can get his opponent tired. Sometimes, though, the volume's not the best. Sometimes he's just stopping and staring. Don't like to see that. Again, he turns it up when he notices his opponent gets tired, and he's a decent striker overall, but sometimes isn't putting on as much volume as you would like. And even though he's scrappy, he's tough, he's not really going to give up that easily. It's pretty clear this guy doesn't really know how to grapple. He probably hasn't attended a BJJ class in his life. He tends to get backpacked quite a bit. You know, if you try to get your hooks in against him, he'll pull on your foot, try to work them out, but really not a ton of BJJ skill. That's probably what could cost him the most in this matchup. He's taking on Siraj. Siraj is making his UFC debut, and he's a Canada guy. His striking, even though it's gotten better, if you look at his last couple fights, it's still awful. And if you go way back, he was like barely getting any power on anything, just sort of like slapping with his punches. Not tremendous footwork or anything, just disgusting striking. And even though it's improved a little bit, it's still not that great. So clearly, Yannis has the advantage in that area. But Siraj has the BJJ advantage. He's pretty good on the ground. He's decent off his back. He's always going to look for submissions. And oftentimes he's pretty good if he can take your back, which is something Yannis struggles with a bit. And of course, he did get rear naked choked in his last fight against Austin Bashi. We of course know Bashi's a pretty solid fighter. A problem I have with Siraj, though, is that he's not super physical in scrambles and in wrestling exchanges, right? Sometimes when he's entering on takedowns, he'll just do it with the body lock, and he'll like pull opponents on top of him. When going for a takedown, sometimes he'll end up on bottom. He just doesn't seem to have the strength to finish a lot of these takedowns, and then sometimes he can also lose scrambles. So even though Siraj is better at BJJ than Yannis, I think there are some instances when Yannis, just being scrappy, just trying to be explosive, can out-scramble Siraj and possibly end up on top. But really, Yannis wants to keep this fight on the feet and use his far superior striking. Right now, I don't see any odds for this fight, at least not on Bet Online, my main sports book and one of the sharpest books you'll find. I'm going to guess Siraj is going to end up a decent-sized favorite, but holy smokes, neither of these guys should be a huge favorite. We just don't know a ton about either of them, and there are ways either guy could give their opponent problems here. I'm actually going to lean slightly toward Yannis because I think he's going to be the underdog, and I'm going to look to play him if he is a big underdog. But yeah, if he's not careful, he could get backpacked and he could get rear naked choked here by Siraj. Give me Yannis by knockout, we'll say second round, since he always tends to get those finishes later in his fights. Holy smokes, interesting fight to start things off here. Bantamweight's next. John Castaneda taking on Mark Vologdin, newcomer from Contender Series. Oh boy, John Castaneda. He doesn't have a ton of power. He's going to be pretty light on his feet, moving in and out. He's going to tap these lead low kicks from the southpaw stance often. And then really he's just trying to sort of find angles, ways to work in on combinations. He'll sort of mix things up by going to the body and then come back up high. Not a horrible striker, although he does have a negative strike differential. He's really good against the cage. When he tries to get his wrestling going, once he backs his opponent up, he does pretty well. He's pretty strong once he can get around your legs. Sometimes he starts off in the body lock, dips to a double, tries to get good lift. That's probably one of his greatest strengths as an MMA fighter. But holy smokes, this guy is not smart at all. Just look at his last fight. I almost put a brick through my TV screen because I had money on him against El Guapo, Chris Gutierrez. We know Chris Gutierrez can't grapple his way out of a paper bag, but this guy waits till round 3 to start wrestling. He lost round 2, and then he lost round 1 because he got clipped at the end. And that brings me to another point. I mean, the durability of Castaneda is not great. Even in fights where he's not getting knocked out, he's getting hurt. Daniel Marcos hurt him. Chris Gutierrez, who, let's be honest, doesn't have a ton of power, he clipped Castaneda. So the chin of Castaneda is not good, and the fight IQ is not too good. Mark Vologdin, this guy's just an absolute peanut. I'm saying Castaneda's brain is a peanut. Well, this guy's whole body's a peanut. He's tiny. I mean, that's a huge issue for him. He's going to be really undersized in all these UFC matchups. And he usually defends takedowns pretty well. He can sprawl. He can get to his underhooks. He has an understanding of fundamental takedown defense. But man, I don't really like him that much if he gets on the ground. Doesn't have a tremendous get-up game. Because he's so small and lacks physicality, you can imagine it'd be hard for him to get a bigger guy off of him. I'm really impressed with his striking, though. He has excellent tactics, excellent footwork, all of his technique, really good across the board, really excellent kicks. And because I just mentioned Castaneda has chin concerns, I think Vologdin could land a power shot in close. He rocked his opponent, Martinetti, in that legendary Contender Series fight he had, and I think he could rock Castaneda here. If Castaneda isn't smart, if he's not minding his P's and Q's and engaging the wrestling, Vologdin's going to be live for a finish, absolutely. And even if he doesn't get a finish, he can win a damage-based decision where he hurts Castaneda in a couple rounds. Even though Castaneda tries to attack those angles, like I said, he is hittable. He's got a negative strike differential. So Vologdin could time a shot when he's coming in. He could set up one of his own shots from distance. And Castaneda just doesn't attempt a lot of takedowns, even though he should. That's one of the main reasons why I say he doesn't have good fight IQ. I'm going to agree with the line here. I think Vologdin should be a slight favorite, given that he's younger, given that he's got some finishing upside on the feet. But I wouldn't bet minus 130 just because there are problems with him. He's making his debut. He's undersized. And if Castaneda finally decides to use his head, I mean, he's going to probably out-wrestle Vologdin. So give me Vologdin by decision. Not betting him at this price, though. Flyweight's next. Mitch Raposo taking on Alan Nascimento. Mitch Raposo is just an absolute water bug. He's moving around constantly, doesn't really engage, doesn't really want to do anything. He's just going to prevent his opponents from doing anything to him, not letting them set up strikes, not letting them set up any takedowns, and then occasionally he'll just use his speed to fire in with a combination, maybe working some wrestling, which he's not going to do here, maybe working some kicks. He does have solid combinations, and in this particular matchup, I think he's going to be able to land those. I think that's probably going to be his best tool, what he's going to have to use to beat Nascimento, and he cannot afford to get taken down. The BJJ of Raposo is not great, even though he can wrestle pretty well. I have concerns about him if he starts to give up his back, get dragged into some grappling exchanges. So Alan Nascimento, this guy's a very good fighter. He just tends to have difficulty making weight because he's so big. You see he's got 3 inches in height, 5 inches in reach over Raposo here. He's going to work a lot of kicks. I really like some of his striking skill overall. Not so much of a boxer, and he is at a speed disadvantage here against Raposo, so he really has to use his head and mix in some grappling. It was concerning that he never really tried to take down Cody Jourdain in his last fight, because Jourdain was tuning him up on the feet before Nascimento landed that elbow. So if Nascimento's not being smart here and he's being a goofball, not shooting takedowns, Raposo could end up piecing him up because Raposo's hard to find on the feet, and he's got those really strong combinations. He's got power, and they come quick. So Nascimento could end up falling behind in the striking if he doesn't engage his grappling. But if he does engage in his grappling, oh boy, he can get to the back really quickly. He's not a guy who's going to make any mistakes. He's extremely experienced in the jiu-jitsu realm. I think he'll take Raposo's back and probably submit him with a rear naked choke if he gets the takedowns going. I'm going to say Nascimento wins this fight in most cases. I'm going to take him by round 2 sub, but I was going to bet Mitch Raposo when he was like plus 265, I think plus 242. But dang, now he's all the way down to plus 215. I think people had the same idea I did because, yeah, Nascimento, he might be starting to get a little washed, starting to show some bad fight IQ. Raposo has a path to victory if Nascimento's not careful, but let's be honest, if Nascimento comes out here smart, he is going to, in fact, submit Mitch Raposo. So give me Nascimento by round 2 sub. Oh boy, women's flyweights next. JJ Aldrich, we haven't seen her in a while, taking on the Canadian Jamie Lynn Horth. So I'm actually pretty impressed with JJ Aldrich overall. She fights southpaw stance and is a pretty tricky striker. She has excellent timing. She knows exactly when to let her hands go. When she's not letting her hands go, she's feinting, trying to create openings, and she's very defensively sound. She also defends takedowns very well. You don't see JJ Aldrich getting controlled too much. You don't see her getting taken down too much. Erin Blanchfield couldn't take her down. And if she gets put against the fence, she can usually turn off of it. So getting controlled tends not to be an issue for Aldrich. The one thing with Aldrich is you're not going to really be able to count on her to hurt her opponents that much. Her hands come fast. She's sharp with her striking. So, yeah, anything's possible. She could hurt her opponents at times, but doesn't really happen too often. Jamie Lynn Horth, you can tell she's been training MMA for a while. She doesn't really have any blatant holes in her game. She's active in the clinch. She knows how to grapple. She knows how to strike overall. She's really, really hard to take down. J.J. Aldrich does have some sneaky offensive wrestling at times, but I don't think that's going to work here. Jamie is bigger, and she's extremely physical in the clinch and against the fence. The problems I have with Jamie Lynn Horth and why I think she's overall a disappointment in the UFC, she did get a finish over Teresa Bleda, but I'm just not too impressed with Horth's overall body of work. And part of that is because she lacks urgency. And, she's a little bit on the older side. She's not super fast. That's a disadvantage I think she's going to have in this fight. So I think Horth could do well if she mixes everything up, if she can set up her kicks well, if she can maybe land some good strikes in the clinch. Even though Aldrich is hard to control, I think Horth could get ahead on some clinch strikes. I also think J.J. Aldrich could just set up strikes better. Use her speed advantage, time Horth if she throws a poorly set up kick. Maybe just use her feints to set up a good entry. I think Aldrich's hands are way sharper than Horth, and actually, I give her the advantage in the striking realm. So a little bit of money has been coming on Aldrich. I actually bet her at plus 180. She's now plus 165. I think this is one of those fights that's just going to be really, really close and should basically be like a pick'em, right? It's just going to end up playing out extremely competitive. So, yeah, I think Aldrich at plus money is the side. I do think the fight's going to go over, but that's pretty par for the course in most women's fights. Give me J.J. Aldrich here as an underdog. I think she's going to get it done by decision, but this is going to be a really, really close fight. Another female fight, bantamweights. It's the Canadian Melissa Croden taking on Daria Zheleznyakova. Melissa Croden, the one word I would use to describe her is just gritty. She tries to make fights ugly, make them filthy. She's going to attack the clinch, work knees and elbows in there. But the problem with her is she's not really a super skilled martial artist. Her striking's kind of ugly, not really a lot of power, doesn't really have a lot of good defense or any crazy footwork. And then even her wrestling is not too crazy good. And I don't think she's great off of her back either, because we saw Luana Santos take her down. Granted, Santos is good at BJJ in her own right, and she's pretty heavy from the top, but I did not like the way Croden looked off of her back. Granted, Zheleznyakov is probably not going to take her down. It's actually Croden who's going to want to be looking for takedowns here. And if she can't get takedowns, just try to do work in the clinch. Zheleznyakova, on the other hand, she's a much, much better striker. Primarily, we're going to see a lot of sharp jabs and sharp twos from her. She can mix in shots to the body well. Her takedown defense is not terrible. She has some decent strength. She gets underhooks fairly well. I think she's improved in that regard. If she's against the fence, she can sort of just post on one arm and find a way to work back up. But holy smokes, if she gets caught in the open, away from the fence on her back, it is not pretty. She doesn't have a great get-up game, and she's really vulnerable to getting finished there. That's why in her losses, she got finished by Melissa Mullins via ground and pound, and then Eileen Perez took her out with an arm triangle and then just twerked on her grave afterward. So Daria Zheleznyakova does not want to get taken down in the open. That's very important for this fight. And I actually think Zheleznyakova could hurt Croden here. I think on the feet, she definitely has a finishing upside. So again, this is another instance where I like the female underdog. We cannot trust Croden. She's not good at anything. She has to be able to really take down Zheleznyakova or just get a lot of work in the clinch. But Zheleznyakova has gotten better at escaping clinch situations when she needs to, and she's not horrible at defending takedowns, and Melissa Croden's wrestling is not that good. And if this fight stays on the feet, I think we'll see the sharper striking of Zheleznyakova shine through here. So give me Zheleznyakova as an underdog. I'm taking her by decision. But again, very, very competitive fight. And if too much more money comes in on Zheleznyakova, because I got her at like plus 155, you might just have to stay away from it because there are obviously ways Croden could cause problems here. Time for our greasy heavyweight matchup. Tanner Boser finally returning to the UFC after almost 3 years, taking on Gokhan Saricam. So Tanner Boser, one of the best ways to describe this guy is just as a brawler. He's going to wing big punches. He doesn't really set things up super well. Just going to put everything into a calf kick, put everything into an overhand. Really, he'll extend combinations too. Just looking to land these massive strikes. Even though he can use decent footwork, you'll see him move around okay at times. Like I say, he sort of winds up on everything, doesn't really set up his strikes, so you can sort of tell what he's going to throw. A really skilled striker can probably avoid a lot of his stuff, unless he's just going crazy with combinations. One thing we know about Tanner Boser, you can see it in his last fight, which is not a UFC fight, and you can also see it when he did fight in the UFC. This guy is hopeless off of his back. He better be praying that he does not get taken down because he's not a jiu-jitsu prodigy of any kind. And, his poor jiu-jitsu skills, his poor get-up game is actually exacerbated by the fact that he's not a huge heavyweight. He's not weighing in at the limit. He's fought at 205 before. He's kind of like in the 230-ish range, I believe. And he's going to be smaller than Saricam here. Saricam, he's got a very jab-heavy game. This is his debut, but you can watch him fight in Bellator and in some other organizations. He really does a good job of moving his feet like Boser, but he's going to rely more on that jab. He just sort of throws things out there without telegraphing. Like I said, he's got good movement as well. Probably better than Boser. He's never really staying in the same spot. And he does a good job of getting in and out with his strikes. And a huge problem for Boser here is that Saricam, he can wrestle. He can level change into a double leg. He can run through his takedowns. He can work trips against the fence. Not good, because Boser doesn't have a good get-up game. And Saricam is a little bit bigger. If we just look at their last weigh-ins, Saricam, he's more in like the 240, 250-ish range. He's a little bit bigger than Boser. You can see that, he's an inch taller. Maybe has a little bit of a reach advantage. He's definitely the bigger guy, and he's a better wrestler, and he has top time upside here. So all things considered, I actually like Saricam quite a bit here. Saricam also seems to have a good chin. He's never been knocked out, so even though Boser obviously could clip him since he just puts everything into his strikes, I don't know that's super likely. I think it is likely that we see Saricam mix in his wrestling, get some control time, and be able to piece up Boser with a superior jab. Also, I don't think Boser's cardio is that good. He probably should have been finishing Alexa Kamer in his last UFC fight because Kamer has terrible cardio. Then in Boser's last fight, the guy in the second round just had his hands down, was like, okay, finish me. I'm too gassed from the first round, but took Boser forever to finish him. And Boser wasn't able to put a pace on him of any kind. So he doesn't have good cardio. I think Saricam has way better stamina. Lots of advantages for Saricam here, which is why I think he should be a bigger favorite. Haven't bet him yet, but I'm looking to. Thank you for getting better than minus 200. It's worth a shot. I'm just going to see if we, get some improved line value here. But give me Saricam by decision. Middleweights, Robert Valentin, Robzilla, taking on another newcomer, Julian Leblanc. So I'm not really sure what the deal is with Robzilla here. People like him in this matchup. Money's been flooding in on him. Julian Leblanc was the favorite, but now Robert Valentin is minus 120. But I have to ask myself the question, what is it that this guy does? What are his skills? I don't know. I guess he's dangerous. I guess, quote unquote dangerous if he's fighting bums. Because, he couldn't even finish Ryan Loder. And we know Ryan Loder's not too durable because in his 2 fights after fighting Valentin, he got smoked in the first round. Not hard to finish, but Valentin couldn't finish him. And otherwise, what's Valentin's skill set? Just sort of wing strikes, like just wing a calf kick from range, wing an elbow, try a wheel kick or some sort of spinning attack. Not really any setup, not really any skill involved. And then, even though he ends up in a lot of grappling exchanges, if you watch his fights, he doesn't really offensively wrestle. And one of the only times you'll see him shoot in on a double leg is when he got hurt, like in the tough fight against Paddy McCrory. But he just doesn't really do anything. And since I don't have a lot of other comments about Valentin's skill set, I gotta mention, he's coming off a back injury. He was supposed to fight Jackson McVeigh at the end of last year, but had to pull out due to an injury, which was said to be a back injury. Now, maybe the reason why he's a favorite here is because he's taking on Julian Leblanc, who's making his debut. And let's be honest, this guy's not going to win too many fights, even against the bum middleweights. He's a southpaw, and I kind of like that he's got a steady stream of striking. He's going to throw that jab out there, has some decent kicks. Apparently, this guy hangs out with Marc-Andre Barriault, his fellow Canadian. I can kind of tell. He's a little similar with his clinch activity. Good knees, good elbows in the clinch. He's dangerous there. He fought Darian Weeks recently, and he hurt Darian Weeks with a knee. So this guy's no joke in the clinch. He can wear on you, and those clinch strikes, not only do they do cumulative damage, they can also do immediate damage. They can take you right out. His grappling is mediocre at best. I can tell he at least has done a jiu-jitsu class before. You can see him attempt some sweeps from the bottom. He's okay from the top, but just nothing that's really going to knock your socks off. Ultimately, though, I don't understand why so much money's coming in on Valentin. I've had 4 money line bets so far on this card. The lines have all moved. This is the only one that's gone against me. I had Leblanc as a favorite, but I'm sticking by that. Why is Robert Valentin a favorite now? He hasn't looked good at any of his UFC fights. None of his fights have aged well because everybody he's fought has gone on to do worse in their next fights than they did against him. And if he's coming off of an injury, we might see the worst version of Valentin yet. And I don't even know how to describe what he does. At least with Leblanc, I know he's got a steady stream of strikes. He can mix in takedowns. He can do work in the clinch. I don't get it. So I'm sticking with Leblanc here. I think, at plus 100, he might be one of the best money line spots on the card. I do expect money's probably going to come in on Leblanc. I think this line's probably going to switch back because I just don't know what line of reasoning suggests that Valentin should be a favorite when he hasn't demonstrated his UFC level at all. He just hasn't been looking too good. Give me LeBlanc. Give me LeBlanc by second round TKO. I think those clinch strikes could do a number on Valentin. And let's be honest, the durability of this guy has to be a little compromised after he got brutally knocked out by Atiba Gauthier. Give me LeBlanc by second round KO. Featherweights, we got Denis Buzukja taking on Marcio Barbosa. So we haven't seen Buzukja in a while. I believe his last time out in the UFC was August 2024 against Francis Marshall. Marshall took the fight on short notice and he beat Buzukja by split decision. Buzukja's striking isn't too bad. He has decent timing. He's got decent hands, but really nothing crazy, nothing that sticks out too much. You would expect him to maybe wrestle a bit more. He's done a lot of training in the past with Sarah Longo Jiu-Jitsu, training with guys like Aljamain Sterling and Merab. But you won't see him attempt a lot of takedowns. It's not really his deal. And a huge problem for him in this matchup is the chin. You don't like to see featherweights chinny, but this guy is extremely chinny. He gets hurt left and right. He got slept by Jamal Emmers, who doesn't really sleep a lot of people. Then he also got hurt pretty bad by Francis Marshall. So the chin is a huge concern for Buzukja. And yeah, it's pretty obvious why the UFC made this matchup. Marcio Barbosa's coming off the Contender Series. I'll say guys have power, but it needs to be noted, you can look through all this guy's fights. Very rarely will you see someone in the lower weight classes just turn people's lights off with their striking. That's what Barbosa does. He has insane power. You don't really see anything like it. He's very unique. He's an anomaly for this division, and he is horrifying. With 17 wins, he has 14, I believe, by first round knockout. You do not see that too often for a featherweight. Sometimes he'll start off slow in his fights, just get his reads, but then it's just like a minute and a half in. He starts pressuring forward like Mike Tyson, moves his head, lands powerful hooks past his opponent's strikes, has excellent timing, sort of waits for them to expose themselves and then just blasts them with insanely powerful punches, and it'll also work to the body pretty well. Once this guy starts pressuring you and cutting off the cage, you can't really avoid him, and in most cases, you just end up getting brutally knocked out. There are 2 losses on this guy's record, so he's not unbeatable, and both those losses were in the second round finishes, because Barbosa just sort of quit. When things weren't going his way, he just sort of gave up, which is really weird. I mean, when you watch him in the first round, it doesn't look like he's getting tired, like if it goes toward the end per se. So it's kind of surprising that he quits like that, but it's happened twice, which means we can't ignore it. Obviously here, everybody and their grandma is going to be saying Barbosa wins by first round knockout. How can you not say that? Buzukja doesn't have a chin. Barbosa has insane power. Barbosa's good at cutting off the cage, so Buzukja probably won't be able to get away from him in any way. It's not like Buzukja has crazy power and then he just doesn't wrestle a lot. So yeah, everybody and their mama, and myself included, will be saying Barbosa by first round KO. Not really sure what you can bet here because I imagine the bookies are going to be all over that, but I imagine that's going to be the outcome here. Lightweights. Thiago Moises taking on Gage Young. Thiago Moises has not been looking too good recently. Now, he's got some heavy calf kicks and, fairly competent striking. He's got decent technique on his strikes, but his volume's terrible. Like, he just doesn't use his strikes a lot. And if he gets those calf kicks going like he did against Trey Ogden, he can really do some damage. It's just he doesn't really put enough out there. The one thing he can do really well is take your back. He's excellent with locking up the body triangle. He can work some rear naked chokes. His BJJ is solid overall. He's got a decent double leg takedown. It's just he's not super smart, and he doesn't go to his wrestling often enough. You would like to see him attempting more takedowns given how good his BJJ is. And yeah, he's just looking washed recently. Jared Gordon, who just has 1 million decision wins, he slept Thiago Moises the last time we saw Moises out there, which was almost a year ago now. Not looking good. So it's no surprise that the young buck, Gage Young, is favored over him. Gage Young is going to come forward a lot. He's going to pressure nonstop. He's going to throw a lot of kicks. Just sort of throws the kitchen sink at his opponents. Does a lot of everything. He's going to attack at different levels of the body. Just sort of overwhelms his opponents. But he's not a particularly good athlete. Nothing he does from a skill perspective knocks your socks off. Good pressure, decent striking overall. He's got some good wrestling too. But just not a tremendous athlete, not moving super quick. And again, nothing that's really going to knock your socks off. Now we have to talk about his grappling here. We really have to dig through his previous fights to see like what sort of positions he's been in, because Moises could definitely put him in some bad positions here. I'm going to say the BJJ of Young isn't tremendous, but he's one of these guys who's just really scrappy. So if you take his back, he's not just going to just collapse. He's going to try to stand up. He's going to try to shake you off. He's not going to tap super quickly if you put him in a submission. Those are all good things to see here. He's going to be able to power through some submissions. Thiago Moises could absolutely take him down, take his back, and potentially even get a choke here, which is why he's not a huge underdog. But to be honest, outside of that, I think Gage Young is going to be able to use his pressure, get ahead in the striking, use that scrappiness to survive some grappling exchanges, and most likely get a win here. Not interested in playing the money line because, again, Thiago Moises does have that path to victory, and Gage Young still needs to accrue a little bit more experience in the UFC. So far, just that one UFC win against Malott, who is not very good. But I'm going to take Gage Young here by decision. We got a couple killers in the women's flyweight divisions. Jasudavicius looking to put on for her Canadian crowd against Karine Silva. So Jasudavicius, her main thing is she's just extremely physical. Look at her control time statistics. She has a control rate of 90% just about. So that means whenever she's in a grappling or a clinch exchange, she's in control about 90% of the time, whereas her opponents are controlling her only like 10% of the time. And that's crazy for control statistics. She's actually improved her finishing ability on top. You know, in the past, she wasn't able to finish anybody, but now she's got a few UFC finishes. When she gets on top, she's got good ground and pound. Then she can start locking up chokes from the back or start locking up front chokes. Good to see some finishing ability to accompany that physicality in wrestling. But man, she's not super fast. She hasn't been training MMA for a super long time. And she's getting a little bit up there in age. So she doesn't avoid strikes that well. Her head movement's never been great. So she's there to be hit for sure. Doesn't really have any power on the feet, like I said. You can tell she hasn't been training or striking for too long. She doesn't have that like core martial art striking ability that you see guys who've trained Muay Thai or karate have. But I think she's improved her footwork a little bit. I sort of saw that in the fight against Mayra Bueno Silva. She can move around a lot better. She's not as stationary with her feet, which is good because she doesn't really move her head and gets hit a lot. Karine Silva, I'm going to say she's dangerous everywhere. We know about the grappling. We know how dangerous she is with submissions. But she's also shown flashes of power on the feet as well. So it's no wonder they call her Killer. That's a well-deserved nickname. Her striking's gotten a bit better. You know, when she first came to the UFC, I'm like, okay, if anyone can survive the grappling and put a little pressure on her, they're going to outstrike her. It just looks like she just has these flimsy front kicks, just these like overhand she's winging. They've got power on them, but not super set up. Her striking does look like it's gotten better, though, so we have to take note of that. The biggest problems with Silva, though, are that she wastes time from her back and that she can sort of get tired. So when she gets taken down, she's going to just try to throw up all these submissions. She's gotten a lot of submission wins in the past, so she probably feels, might as well go for them. This has worked for me, but it's a bad habit. It's a bad habit we see from these jiu-jitsu nerds, and Karine Silva is oftentimes a jiu-jitsu nerd from her back, and that's why this is a bad stylistic matchup for her, because Jasudavicius, she's very, very strong. If she attempts the takedown, she's probably going to get him. Silva often allows herself to be taken down because she's trying to work submissions. She's real comfortable in the grappling. The problem is I don't think she's going to submit Jasudavicius, and she might be in some ground and pound while she's down there. So, yeah, I think Jasudavicius is going to get a win in front of the Canadians here. I think she's probably going to cover that minus 270 price. Ultimately, though, I'm not going to bet her. I think the line's kind of accurate. If money keeps coming in on Silva, we can look at taking Jasudavicius. And, yeah, Jasudavicius might be able to get a finish here. Silva has definitely been finished in the past. So, yeah, maybe we look for some sort of Jasudavicius finish prop. But give me Jasudavicius by decision in this one. Lightweights, and I'm excited to see the debut of Nallo as he's taking on Jai Herbert. Nallo has very impressive striking. It's just very satisfying to watch, super clean. He's mainly going to work a jab and a calf kick, but he can follow with combinations. It's just his jab that's the most prominent. He's going to work it nonstop. It's really stiff. Everything this guy throws is stiff. So you see he's a tall, skinny guy. You look at his striking style, you think maybe he's just someone who wants to outpoint you. But no, he has a 100% finish rate. I don't believe he's ever been the decision as a pro. And that's because he can hurt guys really bad. When he gets his hands on you, you're in trouble. Even though he's kind of a lanky guy, standing at 6 foot, sort of has a lanky striking style, he's got a lot of power in all of his strikes. And he even works this like front kick to the face. Usually people just work their front kicks to the body, but this guy's gunning right for your chin. So very, very dangerous is Nallo, and even in the grappling he's dangerous. This guy just has the ability to get straight to your back if he engages you in the clinch. He can just sort of jump you against the fence. And yeah, you don't want these guys with those long, bony limbs wrapping their arms around your neck. Not good. So the defensive grappling, even though that's a bit of a mystery, Nallo definitely can mix in some offensive grappling. Jai Herbert, he's a great striker in his own right, just not quite as much power. He has really good kicks. He throws a nice straight 1-2 down the middle. Has really good timing, and even though he's getting up there in age, he's continued to show pretty good vision and distance management, which is something that allows him to get ahead of his opponents in the striking realm. But there are some problems with this guy. He's been out for over a year. We last saw him in March of 2025 against Taco Padilla. Extremely boring fight. It was a split decision. I thought Herbert probably won the fight, but you can't get upset. Nothing happened. That's because Herbert has zero urgency. I mean, if you let this guy, he'll just stand across from you doing nothing. So Nallo, he's going to have to be pretty active here with that jab, and Herbert might be forced to fight at a higher pace than what he's used to. I also have durability concerns. As I mentioned, Herbert's starting to get into his late 30s. He's been around for a while. And he's been shinned before. He's been knocked out. Even in fights where he hasn't been knocked out, he's sort of gotten rocked. And that is not good against Nallo, because this guy will absolutely rock you. Nallo, he's a Canadian here. He's also training with Firas Zahabi in TriStar. I really like Firas Zahabi and the way he game plans for his fighters. Usually you're going to be able to rest assured that his fighters aren't coming out doing something stupid or doing something reasonable that's going to help them win the fight. So taking all that into consideration, I think Nallo's going to get this one done. I think even though Herbert can be hard to hit at times, it's not going to take much from Nallo. I think he's going to be able to smack Herbert right on his chin and probably send him to the shadow realm or to the blank zone. So I'm going with Nallo here. Give me Nallo by first round KO. But in terms of a bet, I might want to see the line come down a bit because it is Nallo's debut, and Jai Herbert can be a little bit tricky to hit. We don't really know if Herbert maybe can bait Nallo into a low-volume affair here. But I am going to go with Nallo, and if the line drops, I'm probably going to play his money line. Bantamweights, Kyler Phillips taking on Charles Jourdain. Kyler Phillips I have not been too impressed with as of late. He does have some dynamic striking. You're going to see a lot of footwork from him. He can hit angles. He's got a good jab. He's good at finding overhands past his opponent's guard. Good kicks. He'll attack all levels. Got some good spinning kicks as well. Really skilled in the striking realm overall. Guess what? He can also wrestle and grapple pretty well. Never been submitted, never been finished at all, to be honest. Has good timing on his takedowns, has a nice double leg, and is pretty skilled with his submission ability. He can also control pretty well. So in terms of skill, Kyler's good across the board. The problem is this guy just dances around like he doesn't want to fight. Just circling around the cage, won't plant his feet, And if you pressure him, he's going to get really tired because he's not taking EPO anymore, so his cardio can fail him at times. And yeah, the best example of this is the Vinicius Oliveira fight, which is his last fight. Oliveira was just pressuring him and just smoked him in rounds 2 and 3. Phillips was just moving around like a cream puff, would never set his feet, would never engage Oliveira. And yeah, he couldn't really get anything off just because he refused to fight. Just kept backing up, making himself tired. So not too impressed with Phillips as of late. If he wants to have more success in the UFC, he's going to have to actually want to fight and hold his ground a little bit more. He's taking on Jourdain, who's very skilled in his own right. Really like his kicks, really like his hands. Across the board, does a lot of things well in the striking realm. The problem is he's not really a pressure guy. I think, if you're fighting Kyler Phillips, you should be pressuring him because that's his weakness. But I don't see Jourdain as just a guy who's non-stop walking people down, which might give Phillips an avenue for victory here. Now, Jourdain does hit pretty hard. You have to respect his power. Doesn't have like a crazy amount of knockouts, but yeah, he can definitely hurt you. There's no doubt about that. I think he could potentially hurt Phillips here. What we have to talk about is probably Jourdain's most notable move, which is his guillotine. He's finished a couple guys with that. He finished Victor Henry with a guillotine. They just most recently took out Davy Grant with one. The way he gets his grip, it's sort of like palm to palm. It's not your typical guillotine. He can get a lot of power with it, even if he doesn't have full guard. From his back, he can finish with that guillotine, and guys tap pretty quick to it. So if he catches you in that, you might be in real trouble. But I think because he has so much faith in that guillotine, he lets people take him down. The takedown defense of Jourdain is not good. And I think Kyler Phillips might be able to exploit that. We might be looking at situations where Jourdain has to submit Phillips, because if he doesn't, he's just going to end up on his back, giving up a lot of control time. Obviously, I think there's a path for Jourdain to land that guillotine because it's so strong, even against a guy in Phillips who's never been submitted. But I do think since Phillips' BJJ is so well developed, he's probably going to be able to avoid getting submitted. And if he looks for takedowns here, he might be able to get quite a few. I also think that since Jourdain doesn't pressure too much, that's going to allow Phillips to get some of his offense off more than in his previous fights. And he's going to be able to use that dynamic striking to touch up Jourdain a little bit. And by the way, the odds were flipped. It's Phillips who's the underdog. If we were getting Jourdain at plus 145, I think we'd all be betting that. But we're not. We're getting him at minus 170, which I don't want to play because this could actually be a stylistic matchup for Phillips where he can get things done in Canada. I am leaning more towards Jourdain. I think this fight will go the distance. There are ways it could finish, for sure. I think, to be honest, either of these guys could land a KO, even though Phillips isn't really some killer on the feet. With that dynamic striking, he could land something on Jourdain's chinny chin chin, and Jourdain has been dropped before. And Jourdain hits pretty hard. And Jourdain could also get a sub. So there are ways finishes could happen here, but I think most likely it will go to decision. And again, I just don't really like the fact that Jourdain doesn't have a lot of stylistic advantages here. So Phillips has an avenue. I'm leaning toward Jourdain ever so slightly. If Phillips climbs above plus 150, I'm going to start to look to his side for a bet. But give me Jourdain by decision. Finally, in our main event, we got Gilbert Burns taking on Mike Malott, the Canadian, and this guy's a hardcore Canadian. I mean, anytime you see this guy, he's wearing some sort of Canada apparel, he's donning the maple leaf, he's at a hockey game or something. Just one of the most Canadian guys on the face of the earth. Gilbert Burns is not looking too good recently. In his last fight against Michael Morales, which was about a year ago now, he suffered a brutal knockout and apparently got a concussion. And he's just been looking a little bit washed in general. Against Bilal Muhammad, it looked like he didn't even want to be there. Now, people have been saying he had some sort of injuries or whatever, but still not a good look. I think in all of his recent fights, even though he's clearly skilled, he just hasn't had the same fighter we've seen from him in the past, which is a huge concern. But I don't think this guy's forgotten how to grapple. And if you look at this betting line, you might think he has. I mean, he still has excellent wrestling. He can run his legs right through takedowns. He's really good on the top. To this day, he has not been submitted. He can land quite a few ground strikes from dominant positions, and ultimately is one of the best grapplers in the division. Mike Malott, he, I think, should really stick to his striking for the most part. His striking's really, really tricky. He doesn't fight in any sort of crazy pace, but he's got variation in the strikes he throws. He'll throw in combination a lot of times. He'll switch stances. He does a good job of trying to, pull stuff out of his opponents, trying to pull strikes out of his opponents and countering them. He does a good job of staying just active enough from range. He's got really good kicks. Does a really good job of keeping his guard up. Just a competent and overall tricky striker who's not easy to find an advantage against. He does have the ability to go the distance, right? When he first came into the UFC, he was mostly just getting finishes. We saw him get finished in the third round against Neil Magny. We're like, oh boy, this guy's a flake who just can't survive the full 15. We did see him go the full 15 against Trevin Giles, and also go the full 15 against Kevin Holland. It didn't seem to be slowing down too much. And, he fought Charles Radke, got him out of there early in round 2, but didn't really seem to be slowing down at all in that fight. So I think Malott's fine for a third round fight as long as the pace isn't crazy. For a 5-round fight, we don't really know. I imagine he's going to be prepared for this one, and I don't think it's going to be a crazy pace. But, yeah, we got to keep in mind, this guy has sort of flaked out before, late in fights, and then he hasn't gone 5 rounds at the UFC level. So we've got to be mindful of that. And one big problem for him here is the fact that this guy's a jiu-jitsu nerd. If you take him down, he's not going to be looking to instantly pop up. He's going to be trying to maybe grab your ankles and dummy sweep you, start looking for leg locks, all that goofy nonsense. Here's why this line's hilarious to me. Mike Malott's takedown defense is 25%. Now granted, that's because he's only seen 4 takedowns so far, but he's just defended 1 out of those 4. Sometimes that could be due to him pulling guillotine and just putting himself on bottom. But the reality is, what evidence do we have this guy can defend takedowns? Like I said, Gilbert Burns hasn't forgotten how to wrestle. He's still going to be attempting takedowns, I'm sure, and he still has good takedown attempts. Just because he couldn't take down guys like Michael Morales, guys like Bilal Muhammad, Sean Brady, those guys like the strongest guys in the division who have really, really good takedown defense. Mike Malott's not like those guys. Maybe he can defend takedowns, but we just haven't seen it. And then if he does get taken down, he's going to be playing jiu-jitsu nerd off of his back, and that's not going to work on Burns. Burns is extremely competent in the jiu-jitsu realm, never been submitted, and probably won't get submitted here unless Malott hurts him. And he's probably going to stay safe on top once he gets there, and he's going to be able to work some punches. So I just don't understand why this line is like this. I get it. Gilbert Burns is washed. We've got to be concerned about his health. There's no way you could make him a favorite in this fight. But the line's stupid, and in fact, Malott was minus 600 before. So I had no choice. I had to sprinkle on Burns, got him at plus 425. Plus 350 is still stupid because, yeah, if he goes to the wrestling here, he could possibly beat Malott. Malott is not a lock here in any way. But, we have to acknowledge Malott has the ability to hurt Burns on the feet. If he hurts him, we can't really trust Burns to recover. We can't really trust him to have heart at this point. This isn't Burns' retirement fight, but he has said he may be just going to have a couple more fights before he retires. So, doesn't have a lot left in the tank. But again, the line's just stupid. We have no indication Mike Malott can defend takedowns well. No indication he can get up with urgency. And then no indication he can go for 5 rounds. So, Burns is the obvious play for me on the money line. Like I said, got him at plus 425. And yeah, just because he's such a big underdog, I'm going to go with Gilbert Burns here. I think if you don't want to play Burns because he's so washed, you can look at playing fight goes the distance. Even though Malott has a lot of finishes, he doesn't fight with some sort of crazy pace. The guy's really not some sort of killer. He doesn't really do anything that aggressively. He'll sort of just fight in a certain rhythm. And I don't think he's going to really force anything here. It could end up being a boring fight, to be honest. So give me Gilbert Burns by decision here. If you don't want to play Gilbert Burns money line, maybe just play fight goes the distance. But yeah, there is a real chance Malott finds a finish here against a washed Burns. And that's going to do it for the breakdowns. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Also, leave me a comment. What do you think about this main event and the betting line? Or let me know what you think about the fight that's most intriguing to you. What's your prediction for that one? We're going to continue to have more UFC action going forward, so stay tuned for the incoming breakdowns, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.